Tonight I'm going to start not with a presence technique immediately, but I want to start tonight with a little story about a man who invited a friend over to his house for the very first time. And his visitor, walking around the house, was astounded to find a huge aquarium in the living room. And he stood in front of that for a while, watching all of the exotic fish swimming from the one side of the aquarium to the other. And eventually, turning to his friend, he said, "I did not know you kept fish." And his friend smiled and replied, he says, "I don't, I keep water." Now, the interesting lesson from this story is that often we focus on a specific point and we assume that is the thing that is important. But if we expand what we think about, a lot more comes into consciousness. Keeping fish does not speak to the welfare of the fish, but keeping the water, which is the environment in which the life of the fish is possible. That is where life and growth can be found. So in your life and with your purpose in life, I have a question for you. Are you keeping fish or are you keeping water? So let's get into doing a little exercise just to come to presence and maybe just slow down and bring the consciousness to the present moment. So as you are sitting comfortably wherever you are, I would like you to just relax and settle back in your chair, or if you're sitting on a cushion, or wherever you are right now. And just take a moment and become aware of how that chair or cushion or the floor supports you. And just feel the support against your body. And wherever you are now, regardless what you are focusing on, I want you to start focusing on defocusing your eyes. Just soften your vision and lose that intense focus. Notice not only what is in front of you, but also what is in the periphery. And isn't it interesting? When we soften our gaze, we notice more. When we soften our focus, the tunnel disappears. And by becoming aware of not only what is in your focus, but also what is available in the periphery, your awareness grows. And while you're noticing what you are noticing, I want you to resist the urge to close your eyes. Now, in a few seconds, I will give you the permission to close your eyes, but not yet. Just keep it open for a moment and a moment more without blinking. And then when you're ready, just close your eyes and relax. That's right. And notice your breath in and out. Just notice how it feels. And while keeping your eyes closed, notice how your body rests into whatever you are sitting or relaxing into. Being supported, safe. And let us expand our awareness. Just start by becoming aware of the top of your head. And let it expand and become aware of all of your face and your neck and throat. Letting that awareness flow down into your shoulders, down into your arms, all the way into your hands. Become aware of your fingers. Notice the sensations. Notice how you feel warmth. Notice how you feel how it tingles. And now become aware of your chest, expanding with the breath in, contracting with your breath out. And let all of your awareness pull into your stomach. And let it rest there for a moment. And feel the relaxation in the muscles of your back and your lower back. And just let it sit there for a moment, enjoying it. That's right. Let that relaxed awareness flow down your legs all the way to your toes. And you may even want to wriggle your toes before letting them settle in delicious relaxation. And as you're sitting there, eyes closed, perfectly relaxed, think of this moment. Be in this moment, connecting with yourself, your strengths, and all the resources you have. And keeping your eyes closed, become aware of the space that you are in. Just extend your awareness and feel the space all around you, the space you are connected to. And give yourself permission to be open to experiences, thoughts, ideas, and whatever feelings that may arise. Those things that show up to teach you, remind you of your strength, what you are capable of. And in this awareness, notice the space inside, the space around you, the space in between all of us, the space that connects. And while you're sitting there in full awareness of this moment, remember the fish of our story, knowing that the fish is not the focus, but that we all are keepers of the water, keepers of the space within which we exist. And just ponder on that thought for a moment and see the wonder of being a connected being in space, connected to everyone else by the space in between. That's right. Now, bring your attention to this moment. Take a deep breath in and let it out. And come to the here and now. Open your eyes and be here now. Welcome. I've muted all of you, but I just want to let you know that I will open up the line a little bit later for questions and answers. So if you're thinking of a question, just maybe hang on to it until we get to the Q&A part of it. Now, this exercise was also just a simple exercise, a little bit longer than usual, to just slow down and bring your attention to the present moment. Because being present to the moment is one of the best gifts you can give yourself. It is something to be practiced and maintained as much as you can. For some of the attendees of the past webinars, you would be familiar with the coach state exercise, which is a favorite of mine. And it's also a practice that I do many times a day to ensure that my attention stays where it's most valuable, the present moment. Now, before we really start with the content of what I want to discuss tonight, I want us all just to set an intention together for this webinar. Now, as you know or not, intention sets us up for optimal experience, and it allows us to open ourselves up to a learning experience with expectation. I'm going to share my intention for this session, and I would like you to share in this intention tonight. So my intention for this webinar is to create a shared immersive learning experience in which we are all open to new thought, new adventures, and to be willing to integrate that back into our daily lives. And then, of course, also to carry that mindset beyond the session to everything that is valuable in our lives. So I'm going to ask you to just take a moment and breathe that intention in and out. The Taoist mystic Chang Tzu said, flow with whatever is happening and let your mind be free. Stay centered by accepting whatever you are doing. This is the ultimate. And he was referring to that practice of being in the present moment all of the time. And if you think about it, the present is the only reality that exists. Because if you think about memories of the past, those are largely a construction. And any thoughts of the future is just a projection. And we all know how many of the projections of our future eventually becomes true. So the only moment that is real to us is this present moment. Okay. Okay, so we don't have any new people yet tonight. And even if you're not new and you've heard the little introduction that I'm about to give before, I'm hoping that there will be some new understanding that develops here. Now, in this break the threshold framework, we have two major components. On the left, there's the finding of purpose, and on the right is the process of creating change or creating deep transformation. Now, in our previous webinars, I've dealt with purpose finding extensively. And if you want to revisit some of those thoughts, please go to the archived webinars on breakthethreshold.com. In the last webinar, we started talking in detail about the hero's journey. And the hero's journey is just a metaphor for transformational change. And in that session, we discussed the very first step of the hero's journey, which is answering the call to adventure. And the purpose of tonight's session is to talk about the second step, which is actually crossing the threshold into change. But first, I want us to take a small step back and just expand on this model a little bit. Now, in the model, there are the three major stages that we've previously discussed. The first stage, a new hope, which is the awareness that develops around the call to adventure that you experience, and then making the conscious choice to either accept that call or to refuse it. When you hear the call to adventure, it often arises as an event or an opportunity. And based on that event and opportunity, you decide to either accept the call and take further action or to refuse it and walk away. Now, if you accept the call, you are in the stage of preparing to cross the threshold into transformation. Typically where you would be faced with difficulty, uncertainty, and tribulation. The second stage is the transformation stage. This is where the actual change and transformation takes place. It is a very difficult stage to be in, as it exists almost wholly outside of your established comfort zone. In this stage, you face obstacles, you go through deep change, you acquire new learning, and essentially you become someone new. And then the third stage, a brave new world. This stage represents your return to the world after your transformation and your adaptation into being someone new, being a newly transformed being. Now, what you'll also see on this slide is that I've mapped two dimensions on top of these three stages, that of the known world and that of the unknown world. Now, the known world is where we experience everyday life. This is where ordinary life exists, where to a certain extent everything is known, everything is familiar. And it's the world in which we are so comfortable that we often become blind to what is happening around us, purely because that familiarity. This is the world that we live in. It is the world in which the calls to adventure come to us. And the world we have to consciously decide to leave when we embark on the adventure of transformation. We do return to this world eventually after transformation, or even after we abandon transformation. Now, the unknown world is where everything is new and dangerous. This is where we are mired in uncertainty, where we don't know the rules and the limits, and we have to be hyper aware and hyper conscious to notice all of the unfamiliar and threatening things around us that we are aware of. This is where we face and deal with fears, dangers, and threats in the process of becoming a transformed being. And after the transformation, or even after you abandon your experience of transformation, we will eventually return from the unknown world to the known world. And we then have to learn to fit into that known world again. Now, the interesting part is that even if you abandon your transformational journey, it has created transformation. And you return to the known world a changed being. Now, the old sage Heraclitus said that we cannot step in the same river twice. In the same way, the person who stepped in the river are not the same person that steps into it the next time. Because in between the first time and the second time, there was change. Or in a little less metaphoric terms, even a little change changes you. And that little change creates the difference. But I think that's enough philosophy for the moment. So let's just take a step onwards. In book 1, The Fellowship of the Ring, which is part of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, J.R.R. Tolkien starts with a poem, which he only concludes in the 3rd book of that series, The Return of the King. And the first part of this poem, which is not finished for 2 books, goes as follows. The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead, the road has gone, and I must follow if I can, pursuing it with eager feet until it joins some larger way where many paths and errands meet. And whither then, I cannot say. This poem summarizes the crossing of the threshold very well. It's about stepping into the unknown and leaving the known world behind. It is about uncertainty. It is also about embracing adventure. The crossing of the threshold supports your acceptance of the call to adventure with physical action and commitment. And it is in crossing the threshold where the hero proves that they can follow their intention with positive action. The crossing of thresholds in our life, whenever it occurs, is a highly symbolic act. It is an acknowledgement of your commitment to something new. And if I can mention some examples in life where we experience rites of passage. For example, when you leave your parents' home as a transition to adulthood, or if you consider the old tradition of a husband carrying a bride over the threshold of their first home. Crossing a threshold indicates commitment and change, but it also indicates leaving behind the old and accepting the new. The crossing of the threshold is a defining moment in the life of the hero. And it's often the first active decision of responsibility and independence. It's about boldly stepping into a new world. And it's often a very scary act, going from the safety of the known into an unpredictable and dangerous world where the rules are different and the cost of failure may be high. To cross a threshold is about facing uncertainty and the fear of not knowing where your decision to answer the call to adventure will lead you. And even if you are sure of where you think the road will lead, true adventures are always unpredictable and brings unique challenges with it. Now, if we look at thresholds, they are often guarded by people, by metaphorical monsters, or other difficulties which have to be overcome. And it's easy to think of these guardians as something that exists in stories. But if we bring it back to our lives, these guardians can either be an illusion or it can be very real. And some of the examples are, let's say, for example, you are thinking about starting a brand new venture. One of the guardians might be that bank balance, which will give you a safety blanket while you are busy developing this business. Or it might be a family that may need to be convinced of a new job in a new city. It might be a qualification that is a prerequisite for a new job, or the outcome of a background check. Or it could even be someone that needs to give you permission, like a bank manager approving a loan that will enable you to expand the current business. And there's many more examples like this. The crossing of the threshold is also a time of preparation where you can start accumulating power, learn the ropes, learn the rules of this unknown world, and then, of course, prepare for what is going to come your way when you enter into this unknown world. So the question is, how do you ready yourself? And I've listed 3 points here. It starts with having the right mindset. Your mindset forms the basis of a great deal of your behavior and your relationship with success and failure in both your professional and personal contexts. And ultimately, your capacity for happiness and growth. In a book, Mindset, the author and a professor of psychology at Stanford University, Carol Dweck, contrasts the concepts of a growth versus a fixed mindset. She writes that a fixed mindset assumes that character, intelligence, and creative ability are set and cannot change in any meaningful way. When you are caught up in this mindset, people have to prove themselves over and over and over, and they see their abilities as being carved in stone, and the possibilities of expanding it is very limited. So in this mindset, you are doomed to making the most with the set of skills that you have that cannot be expanded much. A growth mindset thrives on challenge and sees failure as a springboard for growth and expanding abilities. It creates a passion for learning rather than a hunger for approval. Its assumption is the conviction that human qualities like intelligence, creativity, and even love and friendship can be cultivated through effort and deliberate practice. When you are in this mindset, you are not discouraged by failure. Okay? And often you don't even see yourself as failing, but you see failure as learning. Now, we all have elements of both of the fixed and growth mindset. The secret to live within the growth mindset is the awareness to recognize the fixed mindset when it shows up. And then at that moment to consciously engage and change to the growth mindset. Having a growth mindset allows people to experiment with, absorb, and immerse themselves in a range of skills that will equip them for a future that requires inquisitive minds and problem-solving approaches. A person with a growth mindset focuses on shaping their thoughts and experiences based on the purpose they serve. They embrace their challenges as fundamental steps towards achieving their purpose. They ravenously learn with a curious mind. They maintain a beginner's mind coupled with mindful presence. They also know that failure and setbacks will occur, and they suffer them with grace. And they continuously connect with inspiration and the motivation of a compelling purpose. Now, it's best to cross the threshold with a growth mindset, but we also have to recognize that the fear and the uncertainty associated with the crossing can be overwhelming, and it can cause us to freeze into a fixed mindset. But this is when knowing that we can consciously choose to enter into a growth mindset is what enables us to gain courage and curiosity. Also, part of the preparation is finding resources. And resources might be skills, it might be coaches, it might be mentors that can assist us on this journey of discovery and transformation. It's not necessary or even advisable to undertake a journey all on your own. There are many people, even if you consider for a moment, that can serve as allies, mentors, and coaches. Now, they normally show up as trusted persons that can help you along the way and assist you in removing obstacles. They can help you with problem solving, and they can help you do things that you might not be able to do on your own. In crossing the threshold, it's useful to consider who might be able to help you in achieving your transformation. You want to look for allies that are trusted and are able to help and teach you to navigate your journey. Now, the best allies are those that either shares a deep purpose with you or has a purpose that is complementary with yours, or whose purpose are served by yours. They can help you not only with obstacles, but also with rivals and others that may even try to stop or harm your journey. Now, it's easy to look at allies as advice givers, but often an ally is just someone who you can talk to, a shoulder you can cry on, or even just someone with whom you can have a decent moan and groan session. The best allies that you can find are those that have already done a journey similar to yours. I remember a number of mentors and friends who helped me when I started my own business way back in 2001. Having the experience of entrepreneurial ventures and, of course, failures, they were very well positioned and willing to help and assist me through my own struggles. And this is something that I'm very grateful for almost 20 years later. When working with allies, it is a great characteristic to have, to be able to listen and to work with your allies in a way that moves you forward. You will find that there's not much use for your allies if your ego and your openness to growth is in question. And sometimes your ego can become your own biggest obstacle. Beyond allies, coaches, and mentors, this step of crossing the threshold also serves as a good point in time to evaluate your own skills and abilities. In preparing to cross over the threshold, it's good to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what the gaps of knowledge is, and it is a good time to strategize, to either build strengths, close gaps, or to look towards allies to support you in the weaknesses that you have and the gaps in your own experience that you cannot fill. And then we get to probably the most important part of crossing the threshold, and that is taking the first step towards action. The choice to engage in deep change requires action. You can have a clear purpose. You can have great personal awareness. You can have a growth mindset. You can have absolute authenticity towards your allies. But none of them means anything without the willingness to commit to and execute on what you want to accomplish. Starting initiatives to transform yourself will always require leaving your comfort zone. We've been conditioned to avoid discomfort and uncertainty. So when we are thinking about crossing the threshold, venturing outside our comfort zones that we've set up over many years, we are trying to break with long-term conditioning. And to take that first step outside of our comfort zones, to fight against our long-term conditioning, it requires a lot of courage, but it also requires active action. As Newton's first law of motion states, a body in motion remains in motion unless it's acted on by an external force. So it means if you are going in a certain direction, it is very difficult to change direction unless you act on changing that direction. Newton's law further states that if a body is at rest, it remains at rest, which means if you are not moving, you need to take real action to start moving. And if you want to move towards change and transformation, you have to take action. You have to take that first step. And then you have to keep on taking action to keep you moving forward or to keep you changing direction. Okay, that's enough theory. Okay, I want to change tack a little bit now and do an exercise with you. I'm going to spend some time setting the exercise up, but then I'm going to expect you to do a little bit of the heavy lifting and do some serious thinking. You may want to grab some pen and paper, or you could just sort of relax into this exercise and do some mental thinking. I also find sometimes after I've done a learning activity or a webinar, I consolidate the thoughts that come to mind by just journaling a little bit afterwards. So this little exercise that I've planned for you, we're going to do it as a meditative guided thinking process. So if you are not in the mood to write stuff down, you're very welcome to just sit back and surrender to the process in a relaxed state. But not yet. If we look at people who achieve what they want in life, it is clear that they either have outcomes that are compelling or they have the ability to make the outcome they want very compelling to themselves. Now, if you're looking at deep transformation or significant change, it will always have multiple outcomes that are a part of your growth and change. And an outcome is different from a goal in the sense that, like a goal, it's a future stated situation, but unlike a goal, it achieves something by understanding how the world will be different once it comes to fruition. And you may remember when we were talking about purpose, the very first question that we seek to answer is, what does the world need? And our outcomes are very much aligned with how this world that we've built up, that exists purely for our purpose, how will it be different once we achieve this outcome that we set for ourselves? Now, an outcome can be small or it may be large, but there are some basic conditions that a good outcome should adhere to. Okay, and I'm going to mention a number of conditions, and then I'm going to show you an example from my own life. Now, a good outcome is always stated positively. It is described in terms of what is wanted and not in terms of what is not wanted. I find a lot with my coaching clients, that it's very easy to fall into negative outcomes, what I don't want in my life. But a good outcome always needs to be stated positively. And I'll give you an example in a moment. A good outcome is also sensory based. Your outcome must connect with things that can be seen, be heard, be tasted, be smelled, be felt, and even more. The senses is going to give us the evidence, and it's going to give us the integration that this outcome is something that is happening and it's something that we are experiencing. Another condition, it's under your control and it's not dependent on someone else or something else. So with other words, an outcome is something over which you retain control at all times. It's not something where you do something, then you give up control to someone else and hope that if they successfully accomplish it, you can continue with your outcome. An outcome must always be under your control. It also should support the world in an ecological manner. And we're not sort of talking here about global warming and nature, but rather with your personal ecology, where the outcome fits in with your personality, with your family system, your overall values, and most importantly, it supports what you see your purpose to be. A good outcome also preserves what is good about you and your ecology, and it expands you in a manner consistent with your purpose. It is very specific, and it is very clear by when this outcome is desired. It also includes your internal processes, your internal states, and your external behaviors. And it includes defining a very first step to be done immediately. Okay, so those are all characteristics of a good outcome. So I'm going to give you an example from my life, and with the audience that I've got here, it is going to hit close to home because it talks about me becoming involved in the creative world as a speaker. So many years ago, I wanted to become a speaker that had a successful and an exciting session at a international creativity conference, which is our conference here in South Africa. Now, up to that point, I never really presented at a conference or to a large group of people. And I mean, we all know what they say about how people are actually more scared of public speaking and spiders than they are scared of death itself. Now, a friend put me forward as a potential speaker at our conference, and I was accepted based on a proposal for a session. So what I did was I went and I set a compelling outcome for myself. And this outcome was set up in the following manner. I wrote a statement, and that statement is as follows. I shall prepare, present, and facilitate a fun and exciting session at the South African Creativity Conference in October 2007. In this session, I will see excited faces, hear voices that are energized with what they learn, and feel the confidence of being well prepared. It will give me the opportunity to learn new things about my topic and create the basis for my reputation as a credible and engaging presenter. I can see myself now as I enjoy standing in front of this group of enthusiastic participants, sharing information, sharing exercises, and practicing techniques. I can see myself after the session, tired but energized, excited, happy and content. I see myself feeling really good. So that was the statement I wrote down as my compelling outcome. And I'm going to sort of break it down for you just in terms of these conditions or characteristics of a compelling outcome. First one, stated positively. And you will remember I said, I shall prepare, present, and facilitate a fun and exciting session at the South African Creativity Conference in October 2007. I also made sure to involve the senses by saying, I will see excited faces. I will hear voices that are energized with what they learn and feel. I see myself now as I will be after the session, tired but energized, excited, happy, and content. I see myself feeling really good. I also fulfilled the condition of it being under my control. And I said, for example, I shall prepare, present, and facilitate. And I further went and I said, it serves my ecology and expands me with the sentences, I feel the confidence of being well prepared, and I learn new things about my topic and create the basis for my reputation as a credible and engaging presenter. I also was very specific and clear by when this would have been accomplished. So I said, I shall prepare, present, and facilitate a fun and exciting session at the South African Creativity Conference in October 2007. It also included my internal process, my internal state, and what I saw my external behavior was going to be. And that statement included the following sentence. I see myself now as I enjoy standing in front of a group of enthusiastic participants, sharing information, exercises, and practicing techniques. I see myself after the session, tired but energized, excited, happy, and content. I see myself feeling really good. So this statement, this compelling outcome was written around March of 2007. So in my own mind, I created a representation of not only what I'm going to do, when I'm going to do it, but I also visualized how I was going to be in that session. I also visualized how the participants were going to be in that session. And then after writing that outcome statement, the first step I did immediately, I went and I wrote the outline of my presentation. Now, I want to share with you a little bit about my life purpose. And my life purpose is a very simple one. And that is to help myself and others expand ourselves to be the best we can be. So in looking at this outcome statement, it was very much consistent with what I see my purpose to be. And it's actually interesting how something like that can ripple out, because now, just over 10 years later, I've presented more than 40 sessions at international conferences here in South Africa, in New Zealand, in Canada, in the United States, and the United Kingdom. That larger outcome was not the outcome that I initially considered, but achieving that initial outcome started expanding who I was and ultimately who I could reach. Okay, but we all know not everything is friendly puppies and sweet smelling roses. What I did not mention was what I had to let go of in order to accomplish this outcome. Now in life, and I'm sure all of you know this, we sometimes have to let go of things in order to move forward. Now, letting go might mean forgiving people in our lives. It might mean that we ask for forgiveness of things that we've done. It might mean letting go of friendships that no longer serve us. It might lead us to eradicating behaviors that are inconsistent with this journey that we want to be on. For me, I had to let go of a few things. I had to let go of that fear of public speaking, that fear of failure, the fear of rejection. I had to let go of the fear that I wouldn't be seen as someone that could contribute something to help others. I also had to let go of past experiences that indicated to me that maybe I'm not that confident, that I'm not that great a speaker, that I don't have a message to share. And letting go is sometimes a big obstacle to us crossing the threshold towards deep transformation. And often it's the most difficult thing to do in our personal journeys. Okay, enough reminiscing about my experiences. I'm going to ask you guys all over the world that has joined here tonight to try this exercise for yourselves. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to facilitate you through just a very simple guided exercise. And if you want to, you can answer the questions for yourself on paper, or even better, just sit back and relax and just answer these questions in your own mind. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is to just settle down and relax, and maybe even close your eyes, just breathing in and out, and in and out, and just remembering what it is like, and then placing all of your attention on being present here and now, in this moment, focused on setting a compelling outcome that is going to move your life forward in many exciting ways. And when you're ready, you can either open your eyes in perfect readiness and expectation, or you can sit back and prepare to just answer these questions for yourself. Now, I would like you to think of something that you are ready to pursue, or maybe something you want to achieve in your career or your life in the near future. And you can decide for yourself how big it is or how small it is. And if you think about that thing that you want to achieve soon, if you had to state it in the positive, what would that statement be? Starting with the words I shall or I want. And then once you've thought about this thing that you want, state it positively, just think for a moment, what will this outcome do for you? And how would you know that you've achieved it? What would be the evidence of your success? When you achieve it, what will you see? What will you hear? How will you feel? What would you be doing? What would other people be saying? And to bring some clarity to it, where specifically and by when do you want to achieve this? And once you achieve this, what will happen? What will you be doing? What will change in your world? Or how will your world change because of you achieving this? What will you gain once you have this achievement? And what resources do you have right now to achieve this outcome? And what new resources, skills, and allies do you need to acquire to help you achieve this? And how does this support your purpose or your reason for being? And then the final question, what is going to be your first step that you will do after this webinar to achieve this outcome? So just dwell on all of these questions for a moment and think about all the information that may have come to mind. And then let's go to the last, and some might say the most difficult consideration. What is it that you need to let go of in order to cross your threshold and accomplish this outcome? Okay, I've unmuted all of you. So if there are any questions or observations at this stage, please feel free to share.
No, this is, for me, this is really good because I went to a session on Saturday on affirmations. Wasn't exactly what I thought it was going to be, but this kind of like plays into it. So it felt good because I did write down a couple things that during that session that I want to accomplish, and so this was just a nice deeper dive into getting there.
Yeah, the interesting about affirmations are that it's very easy for affirmations to be empty, and it becomes just a sort of a rhyme that you say to yourself. And even with affirmations, if you make it sensory, if you sort of connect to it in the way that you anticipate a visual image of what it's going to bring, anticipate how it's going to connect to your feelings, to your senses, then it becomes a lot more real than just empty words.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The outcomes is on a slightly higher level because it speaks to something significant that you achieve. Affirmations are often used to manage your mood and your sort of daily rituals rather than long-term rituals.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, I like this. This was really good. I had my eyes closed like pretty much the whole time, but I was like I was swirling the whole time, so it was good.
Francois, hi, Francois. This is Susanna. Hi,
yes.
Everybody. So a question: when you define your compelling outcome, I noticed you did it in future tense. Do you have a perspective on I will, or do you? I know there's some kind of schools of thought, if that's the right term, that talk about it in terms of stating it as it's current, as that I am. So creating that future memory by I am presenting at the South African Creativity Conference as opposed to I will.
Yes, yes. There's aspects, if you think back to my statement, there's aspects of both, because I talk about
For sure.
something that I want to accomplish at a specific time and in a specific place. But
Right.
then you would notice the switch. The switch is I see myself, and then it changes to the present tense. I
Right.
see myself participating. I see myself sharing exercises. I see myself, and then I move forward in time. After the session, I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling excited. So there's a blend of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed that.
Yes, because to go into the future, we must remember how it feels now that we could also know what it's going to be like in the past. So we have to play around with the temporal aspects of it, so that time sort of blends into an interesting mix. Yeah. One of the intentions of your compelling outcome is also to create some space for your unconscious to start working on what it is that you want to achieve. And your unconscious mind doesn't understand time anyway, because it's
Right.
always present in this moment. And the reason why we don't pay attention to it much is because we sort of ignore our unconscious to a great extent. What is one of the people that I enjoy a lot, and I think most of you know Win Wenger.
Yeah.
And the work that he does, which is almost 100% focused on getting your unconscious mind going. And I love the work that he does because it opens up that sort of portal to a resource that most people that pride themselves on rational thinking will ignore. And I personally believe that's where the majority of our creativity comes from, is by feeding the unconscious mind with images, with thoughts, with wishes, with outcomes, and then seeing what comes back. And then, of course, acknowledging the unconscious mind. But I'm going to sound like a zealot if I continue talking about that. Yeah.
No, that's good. Like, I know you guys saw a little announcement yesterday, but Lee and I included a really cool toy in our Agent of Change innovation training that came from Win, because I just think he's brilliant. So yeah.
I'm so happy that in the last few years that Win still actively presented, I had the opportunity, and actually I forced myself to go to any and every session I could possibly attend when Win was presenting. And I actually sat through his training about 4 times in total. And I wish I could sit through it another 3-4 times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think there were a lot of brilliant people that came before us. I mean, that are still with us, but like even Lee Dunn. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So Kristen and Jay did one of her sessions at Mind Camp Southwest, and Kristen told I talked to her yesterday. She said it went like they did a pared down version of it, but that it was really, really impactful. And I was like, oh, I love that we're still, doing some of their things, which is really cool.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember and say their names out loud, so that the people that we work with don't see what we do as just purely our creation, but also that we are using the creation of the others that sort of formed us.
Yeah, agreed. That's why, they did a labyrinth, and they gave Joe like big props, and I was like, okay, that's fantastic. So
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna call someone out. Jimbo, at the very least, just jump in and say hello to everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Jim.
Barb's with me here too.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Francois.
I think that the interesting thing for me here tonight is I have a big project the end of this month, end of April, where I'm going to be spending a week with somebody and working on a project. And my mind has been consumed about the logistics of working on that project together, and pretty much stopped there. I hadn't even given myself the time or the opportunity to think about all of the outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was good tonight because, I just would rush over that in my mind and just say, oh yeah, it'll be a great outcome, but I didn't really stop and think about the outcome and the outcomes and, how it would feel, what it would look like, all the potential things that could happen, good things that could and will happen as a result of working on this project at the end of this month. So that was very valuable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I hadn't taken time to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love working with outcomes and connecting it to all of those things that I was talking about. But also, what is really important to me is connecting the outcomes that I see to what I see my purpose to be. Because then if you can connect, I mean, to be honest, sometimes we are not that excited about a project. Sometimes projects end up on our side of the court when we're not quite ready for it. But if you go through the exercise and you say, okay, this project that I don't actually have the energy for, what are the outcomes that I can create for this? And then the most important question, how does this relate to what I see my purpose to be? And if there's a disconnect, then you basically got an answer whether it's the right project for you or not. But if it connects, you can generate a lot of energy and you can make these outcomes compelling. And once those outcomes become compelling, it actually gives you that surge of energy and curiosity that allows you to move forward.
Yeah, that's a good perspective there, Francois. I'm glad you emphasize that because again, I hadn't taken the time to think about the outcomes and to reflect, are they aligned with my values and everything, or is this project aligned with my values? And and I'm happy to say that now that you're pointing out that it's very, very much aligned with it, with those things. And I was looking forward to the project, but I have to say that now I'm looking even more forward to it. Just based on kind of what you're saying and have been saying over the last little while we've been together here. So that's good. It's excellent.
Yeah. But
you guys feel that some of those projects that you're not excited about just because you're like, really? Yes, they're going to help mama pay the mortgage, but I mean, really? But then they end up being some of the most exciting work you've ever done because you weren't excited about it.
Yep, absolutely. The other thing is also, there's nothing wrong through necessity to take on projects that may not be aligned with your purpose, may not excite you. And the justification for taking on projects like that is to say, okay, well, this is something that's going to carry me to the next stage where something is going to appear that pulls me towards my purpose. So don't think for a moment I advocate you only do the work that you love, because life works out in a way that sometimes you have to settle through necessity for certain projects.
Yeah, exactly. I had a session I don't know, maybe 6 weeks ago or whatever. It was for my university, but it was for the, I don't know, multicultural languages and literatures or whatever. And apparently the Spanish professors do not all get along, and there's two factions. And so the dean put me in a room, gave me 3 hours, and locked me in with them and left. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? So I'm like, you know what? Whatever. So, I mean, I did everything that we've been trained to do. I made some rules, and I was like, because I'm like, don't tell me who's who. I don't want to know who the two factions are, who the two leaders are that hate each other. And I got them like engaged. And so at one point she's emailing me on my phone going, oh my God, are they laughing? And I was like, yes, honey, they're laughing. I'm following the process. And by the end I was like, okay, this is pretty rewarding, but it didn't start out that way, So I was like, okay, whatever.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about applying compelling outcomes and making sure that it connects with purpose is if you've got warring factions like that and you can bring them to a point where they see that both their purposes are going to be supported by what is being done, and by working together, then you get a lot of leverage to move forward.
Yeah, that's what happened. It was great.
Yeah.
So, but it didn't start out that way, and I was not excited about it. So, but it ended up being really cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Francois, I'll toss kind of a new thread here on the table, and I know we're probably getting close on time because it's way past 2 a.m. for you.
It's okay. I actually went and I slept for a couple of hours before we kicked off, so I'm good.
Oh, good man. So we play with outcomes and objectives and defining success with our clients pretty regularly. But what I really appreciated about this last half an hour was stretching outcomes in a whole different dimension, and giving all sorts of new lenses and ways that not only I can come into it, but others can engage in it and really define their compelling outcomes or my compelling outcomes in a way that I think transcends what we've been able to do before. So that fantastic. And the other side of that coin, right? So there's two sides of the coin. There's the compelling outcomes themselves and all those facets and lovely little sparkly things that are so exciting. Is what are you willing to let go of?
Yeah.
Which often gets, not to make a bad pun, left behind. Because whether you're at an affirmation class or you're setting positive intentions and you're getting all happy and juiced up and zooming around, you fail to recognize there are some changes that you're going to have to make. Whether it's fear, whether it's old friends or old behaviors, or just getting outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
We often don't recognize those in the rush to that new nirvana. So that was particularly helpful for me tonight. So,
yeah, I can share a little story about that. About 2 years ago, I actually had landed in a situation where I had a friend, very clever guy, a very interesting human being, great mind. And this is someone that sort of served as a mentor to me when I started my business. But he had a really negative view on life. And he was very argumentative. And it got to a point where I said, as much as I appreciate this guy, it's time to leave him behind because this friendship doesn't serve the way I want to live my life anymore. And it was a hard decision, but it's actually interesting. Once I let go of that friendship, life just got a lot better in terms of, because if you've got this constant negative voice in your ear, it becomes very difficult not to actually take that negativity on.
Sure.
Yeah. And I'm not recommending you get rid of all your friends, but it is also, I think, it is also a sign of maturity in recognizing that you are getting to a point where you can actually let go of something that doesn't serve you anymore. And
you're not letting go of the memory of whatever served you at that one point. You're just letting go of what you don't need now to go across that threshold.
Yeah.
So
and it's not that I sort of cut this person out of my life. It is just I don't consciously seek this person out for advice anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's just something that I let go because the advantages of having this person as an ally was a lot less than keeping my momentum to go forward.
Yep, very, very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. So letting go, and it's interesting. Letting go is something that we don't always consciously think about. And it's like I said, it's one of those difficult things. The things that you don't let go of are always the things that's going to sort of rise up in conflict. That's going to rise up in hampering your forward progress.
Yep. Very cool. Very cool stuff.
It's the reason for the season kind of thing, right? Yep. So like they're there for a reason, they're there for a season, or they're there forever. So
yes, absolutely.
No, it was great. It was great to hear from all of you. So thank you.
This is Barb, Francois.
Hi, Bob.
Yes, so for me, I hadn't gone through this exercise before, so it was interesting to witness within myself what the moon manifested as a potential outcome. And that outcome, for me, makes it quite exciting, because the last time I was at your session, I discovered a new purpose within myself, which was quite exciting after leaving the corporate world after 40 years. So when you're in that next phase of your life, you wonder, what will be my new purpose and where will that be? So it's fascinating now to be sitting here listening to your webinar and now getting an outcome to what came out as a seed in your workshop at MindCap quite a few years ago. So it's pretty exciting for me here, Francois. I wouldn't have thought of it in this way, and you're now giving me permission to take the next steps, to have the courage to make this outcome a reality.
Yeah. Thank you very much for those kind words, Bob. But you give yourself permission. If I can give you permission, of course, you are always allowed to do anything you desire.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
However, there's always a component here that says thou has all these things thou must fulfill before they can, do the others. So there's that balance for me in life right now as to how much do I let go of, and that's a difficult one, because the responsibilities I have right now I can't let go of. Perhaps I might find some space to maybe set some boundaries around it so that I can work on the outcome. So it was a really good exercise for me, Francois. So thank you very much for leading me through it.
Yeah. I will make a short comment on that, Bob. And this sort of goes back to what Win Wenger taught, and you talk about space, and it's about giving ourselves the space not only to ask the questions, but also to give ourselves the space to listen to the answers that are coming from inside the unconscious mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what happened here tonight. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If we can,
it's good to have a reminder every now and then, which is why I kept on going back to Win sessions when he was presenting. Yeah.
Yes, I remember going to Win's, and it was quite powerful. I was at that phase in life where I was actually fearful of retiring, because I'd been at the company almost 40 years. So, it became my family. Now I had lots of jobs within that company, but in Win's session, so when you talk about the visualization, I remember with my partner actually seeing my future, Francois, in his session, in my mind's eye. And that is exactly what manifested itself probably maybe 2 years later, the exact day, the sun, the stairs, me jumping up and, clicking my heels. It was amazing. I didn't really realize that was something that was possible to do. So, and I give that credit to Win Wenger and his work.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you've done there is you've just described very elegantly exactly what it took me almost an hour to say tonight.
Oh, sorry. That's all right. I was thinking when you were sharing your story, I thought that's exactly what happened in Win's session. However, Win takes you through those different levels, and I remember at one level, like seeing some really bizarre, crazy stuff, and then sharing it with my partner, and then another level, like crying and shaking, and then I got to the deeper level, and that's when I actually saw myself happy and leaving the company. So I don't know if your work goes to those different levels of going within, Francois?
Oh, yeah. Look, it's at the moment, I'm going to sort of be working in these webinars through the the steps in the hero's journey, but I would love at some stage to do a webinar about going deeper into the unconscious mind, because that is something that fascinates me. And I'm actually busy, and I'll just share this with you. I'm actually busy with a 4-day program that I'm developing, which I'm calling Journey into the Mind, which are going to focus on that whole internal experience. And I'm going to be working on things like working with the unconscious mind, working with trance, and all sorts of interesting things. But I'll if you get me going now, you guys will never get to bed tonight. So it is definitely something that is on my radar, and it's something that I'm working on. And I'm hoping to, once I got this hero's journey bedded down, I'm really hoping to put all my effort into that workshop, which I'm going to call Journey into the Mind.
Because it's probably one of the most, I've had lots of incredible experiences, but that one it was mind blowing actually, you know, and so that's great that you're going to be offering that. It'll be transformational for people if they're really stuck, and you know, if they give themselves permission to be vulnerable and then allow themselves to go there into the dark spot or into the fear, and then through it, it's quite a rewarding experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think what I'm going to do from my side is I'm just going to sort of conclude the session on my side, and then if anyone wants to hang around and just talk, I'm going nowhere. So I just what I want to say from my side is we've got another webinar coming up on the 24th of April. And in that webinar, I'm going to be tackling the next part of the hero's journey, which is, and I'm going to focus specifically on the road of trials. And the road of trials is about when you are starting off on transformation or deep change, and you run into all the difficulties and the obstacles. Also remember that in the next day or two, what I'll do is I will share this recording of this session with everyone. And if there's any questions that come up or any information that you want, I remember last time Wayne sent me an email and there was some questions that he wanted me to just jot down. So please feel free to do that as well. And also, if you want to share the recordings with anyone else that you think might find it useful, please feel free to do that. And also invite others if they want to join and if you think they can benefit from it. Yeah. And then maybe in conclusion, thank you very, very much for showing up tonight. And I hope that this was insightful on a level that will allow you to go and cross the threshold and move towards something that is deeply transformational for yourself. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Francois.
Thank you.
Thank you, Francois.
Okay.
That's excellent. Thanks a million.